Hello everyone, welcome to the next session of Python programming. Today we are going to learn about the CSV file programming in Python. Up to this lecture we have seen two types of files, text file and binary file. We have seen what are the different operations and methods in both files. How do we read from the file, read the contents from the file, how do we write to the file, okay, from Python program. Today we are going to learn about the new file type which is called as CSV file. The full form of CSV is comma separated values. That means this is the same type of text file which contains normal text in the plain English language, but here the values are separated by comma separated values, just like records. So how do we maintain or how do we create these files? Like binary files, we don't create these files by ourselves explicitly. These files are also automatically generated by some system applications or by some applications which you use for different kind of purpose, such as creating log files. Log files means where the data, whatever your activity is going on by you, that data will be automatically created and that will be stored in your CSV file. So the content of the file are just a group of records. Records means in the tabular format, just like we create the spreadsheet. So in spreadsheet we create columns and rows, and each column define or represent some kind of attribute, right? And rows have the values. So just like these records in CSV file, all the data are stored in the comma separated values, just like records. So every value is separated by comma. So in traditional CSV file, the values are separated by comma. But in modern applications, the applications which supports for the support the CSV files, those provide you the various kind of delimiter. Now, what is the delimiter? Comma is the delimiter. Delimiter means how you are limiting or how you are ending your value, each and every value. So in traditional CSV system, your delimiter is comma, because comma separates all the values. But in modern applications, other than comma, you can use any kind of delimiter, such as suppose vertical line or slash, backslash, or any kind of special character you can use. You just need to define that delimiter value in your program while creating the comma separated values files. But the default delimiter means if you don't provide the delimiter value, then the default delimiter for the CSV file is comma only. So by default, all the values will be separated by comma. Now, the syntax of CSV file is quite similar to text file, means the methods and all, but the working is completely different. And just like binary files, in with working with the binary files, we need to import one module called pickle module, just as we have seen in last lecture. Pickle module have to be imported if you want to use the pickle methods, binary methods. Just like that, if you are going to use the CSV file, your module will be CSV. So you need to import the CSV module using import keyword. So before starting or before write down the CSV program, Python program, first you need to, this will be your first line. You need to import the CSV module first, and then you will be able to create or use some CSV file operation methods. Now before starting with the program, first we'll understand how this process works, how we can create or what are the different objects of CSV files. Now in CSV file, we need to create two objects. First is the reader object and second one is the writer object. Now what are the reader and writer object? This is the key difference between CSV and binary files and text file. Okay, in binary file and text file we don't need to create the reader or writer object, but in CSV file we have to create these two objects because we need to convert the CSV data to normal data and normal data to CSV data. So that's why this will be your extra step when you are writing down the Python program for CSV file. So what are the reader and writer object? These are same as the file object. User provided name will be given to the reader and writer object. That means that name, just like file object, that name will be provided by user. Okay, that will be identifier, and you cannot name the reader or writer object as a keyword. That is the rule. And next, once you create the reader and writer object, then you will call the methods for reading and writing by this reader or writer object. That will be your extra step. In text file and binary file, what we do, first we create the file object, we load the reference of the file into file object, and for everything else, for every other operations in text file and binary file, we access all the operations, all the methods using file object only, right? But in CSV file, what we do, just like text and binary, first we create the file object. So first we will open the file, we will create the file object, and we will load the reference of the file into file object. In the next step, we will create reader or writer object depending on what you want to perform. So reader object, the name will be given by user, reader object, and then we will use that file object reference. Once we create the reader object and your reader object is ready, then we will use different methods in the CSV file to perform the operation. So that middle step will be the extra in CSV file. So how this will be done, or why this is required, right? So first we will see the reader object. Reader object is useful when you need to read from the CSV file and you cannot read it or display it as it is in the Python output window. Okay, so what you need to do, that you need to convert the CSV data, comma separated data, into some iterable object. What is the iterable object? Any data structure, any data object where you store the data, just as string, list, tuple, etc., or dictionary. So these are some objects to display the data. Now in the CSV file, we prefer dictionary data structure. Why? Because there are so many values in one record. So for that purpose, we need to use the dictionary. But if the values are 1 or 2, then you can go with the list or string also, right? So why it is required? So what is happening here? Suppose this is your memory part. This is your memory part. Memory part means where your operations are done, processed. So this is your memory part, and your CSV file is stored. Your CSV files are stored in this your computer's hard disk drive, right? So this is your storage where your .csv files are stored. You are reading the files from your storage disk, your hard disk drive, and you will pass this file, you will pass this .csv file to the memory for pre-process. So here what is happening in this, parsing will be done. Parsing. What is parsing? Parsing means check all the CSV values line by line, parse it, convert it to the iterable data object. So parsing and converting CSV data to your normal data object. Because you can't read, just like binary file, you can't read the CSV file directly. So to display it in the output window, you need to take the CSV file from your hard disk drive, convert and parse it line by line, and then convert it to the data objects. Your data object will be string, the just I have mentioned, string, list, tuple, dictionary, like that. And if you want to display the data, display all the values in the output window, then here you will, this is your Python program, this is your Python program. So here you are creating the reader object, this is your reader object. So basically what we need to do, that CSV reader object is used to parse and convert all your data into normal data object. Once your data object is created using the reader object, then this is optional, loop is optional, because you might want to read the first line only, so then you don't need a loop. But if you are going to read the whole file line by line, then you might need the loop. So this is the looping process, and here in the Python program you will get the output as a separate lines, as separate values. So this is the reader object, and this is extra. This reader object is extra here because you need to convert the CSV values to normal data objects, normal values which are readable, which are in readable form. So this is the reader object, this is extra which you need to implement in the Python program. So now we will see the syntax and example of how to create the reader object in CSV file. Now how to create the reader object? You need to create the reader object first. The method is dot or reader. This is the method to create the reader object. Okay, and how do we call it? Because calling is very important. CSV is the module which we need to use. So how to call this? CSV using dot operator and reader. Okay, so your reader object, this is the keyword, you can't change this, but you can give the familiar name for the reader object. So your reader object name is equal to CSV dot reader. That's how you create the reader object. Now let's see the program, or first see the syntax for reader. First you need to import CSV module. Import CSV, that will be your first step. Second step, like any other binary or text file, first you need to create the file object. So file object, suppose 1 is equal to open, you need to open the file, open, then give the CSV file name, anything. So the file, if you are opening the CSV file in read mode, then the file should be exist in your computer system, otherwise the IO error will be generated. So here suppose my file is data.csv, this is my file data.csv. The extension is CSV. The file should be enclosed in single or double quote and read. Since we are creating the reader object, then the file must be opened in the read mode or R plus mode or W plus mode. Then your file object is created. Now it's time to create the reader object. So reader object will be the user defined name. So suppose my reader object is stReader. You can give any name you want. stRead, right? This is my reader object. This is very important since we need to call the methods afterwards using this reader object only. So stRead is my reader object, and then how to create CSV dot reader is the method to create the reader object. CSV dot reader. Now this won't be empty parenthesis because we need something to connect to your file. Now your file data.csv, the reference of this file is already saved in the file object 1, right? So you need to mention this file object 1 here. After that you don't need your file object reference because you are saving this in the reader object. So here file object 1. Okay, so first you are saving the reference of this file into file object 1, and then you are creating the reader object, then csv.reader module, and you are mentioning the file object 1. So you are successfully creating the reader object. Okay, so this is our reader, and after that you are just creating one data object to store the data you are getting from the CSV file, and then you are simply displaying it. So assume that you have multiple records in CSV file and you are reading those records one by one. So how we can read the record one by one, line by line? By using for loop, because with the help of looping process you can easily access those lines one by one. So for, take any row identifier, I'll take I. For I in, now in which object you are looking for the data? Your reader object. Okay, because it has it has the access of CSV file. So for I in stRead, and then just display the data in the output window. That's simple. And then I am just printing I. That means I am fetching first record. Okay, first record in stRead, and then I am printing that record in the output window. And it will change depending on what you want to do. How many records you want to check, right? And if there are any another data structure you are using, then how you are reading that data and displaying that data, it all change. But what is important in CSV file? These 3 instructions. First you need to import CSV module, then you are creating the file object, then you are creating the reader object which is extra, and after creating this, then you will be able to access your data from the CSV file. So this is optional, but most cases if you are reading the data from CSV file, then you need to use the for loop because those are in the records format. So you need to access that one by one. After you are done with the process, and then you need to close the file, then just your file object 1 dot close. You are closing the file. Another here, one extra element is here. I am creating the reader object and I am just mentioning the file object reference here, right? But what if I want to change the delimiter, right? Suppose in the previous file, the file which I am accessing, in that the delimiter is different, right? So how do I mention it? So here one additional but optional parameter is here delimiter. So delimiter is the keyword you can use, and here mention that delimiter value, any special character that you know which exists in that CSV file. So delimiter equal to, and mention that character in single or double quote, so that the system will understand that in this file the delimiter is not comma but the another character. And if the delimiter is comma, then you don't need to mention, because comma is the default delimiter. So your parameter will be file object 1 only. So this is the basic simplest example of the reader object, how to create the reader object and how to access the CSV file, how to read the content from the CSV file. Then we will see the writer object in the CSV file. Now writer object. Just like reader object, writer object writes to the CSV file. You need one data structure first, because what do you write to the CSV file? First you need to create that data object, data structure, and then you will write that data structure to the writer object, and then writer object will save that particular data into CSV file, okay, in that CSV format. So for that we need to create the writer object. So how it works? Object first, this is your memory part. This is your memory part to process, right? First you need to create the CSV file, right? So here, and again, like binary file, you are creating the CSV file in the Python program only. Without Python program you cannot create the CSV file by yourself. So here this is your keyboard, because you are creating the file by giving the user data. So this is your user data in which you are giving the name to the file, you are creating the file, you are giving commands, and then you are entering the data. So this command will be given to the Python program. First you need to create the data structure or data object. So this is your user data along with your CSV file content. So this is your user data. So this is the data you are saving in the CSV file. Now this user data is in plain English language, just like we always input to the Python program or computer system. So this is the user data, and this will be converted to the CSV module. So this will be, this user data, normal data, will be converted to CSV format, right? How? By creating the writer object. So by creating the writer object only, you are converting this normal user data to the proper CSV file, and then this will be done in your memory part, processing part, and then you are saving this file to your storage by .csv extension. So this is very simple procedure. Why I am mentioning like this? Because this will be the additional step in the CSV file. So that's why we need to be careful with, because here in CSV file you need the three objects: data object to store the data, file object to store the reference of the file, and reader or writer object to create or to perform the various operations for reading and writing in the CSV file. Now let's take a look for the example in CSV file for writer object. Besides writer module, writer object, there are two methods in the CSV. First is the write row. Write row, write one row at a time. Okay, so if you want to write the multiple rows, one by one to your CSV file, then you must use the for loop for that. So you are getting the data and then you are saving the data into CSV file. So for that your write row method is there, and second one is the write rows multiple. So here in write row you are taking one line at a time and then you are saving it. With write rows you are considering the bunch of records all at once and then you are saving that record or saving those records into CSV file directly. Here you don't need to use the for loop. If your data is ready, then those data, those multiple rows will be automatically converted to the records in your CSV format. So these two records are there, and to create the writer object, again the method is writer. Writer method is there. You are calling the writer method by CSV extension, so CSV dot writer, right? And then you are just calling the writer method and then you are saving the data object using this writer method. So let's see the example. Write to the CSV file. First we need to import CSV module. So import CSV will be your first step. Then you are opening the file into write mode or append mode and you are saving the reference to the file object. So you need to create the file object. Suppose my file object is file object 1 is equal to open the file and mention the CSV file. I am taking student.csv. If the file is not exist in your computer system, then it will be automatically created, and anyways you are writing the data to the file, so that data will be added or the data will be newly written to the file or it will be appended to the existing data. Here I am opening the file with the write mode. So if the file is not there, then this will be automatically created and the data will be automatically written to the file. And if the file already exists in your computer system, then because of the write mode, the previous data will be completely erased, and with the help of this program you are writing down the new data to the file. After creating the file object, then we are creating the writer object. Give the name. Suppose I am giving stu writer. This is my writer object. The syntax is same. CSV dot writer. Then give the file object 1 as a reference. So file object 1. Okay. If you need to place, you don't want comma as a separator or delimiter, then with comma you can just specify which delimiter you want, right? But as I don't want to change the delimiter value, I want the comma only, so I am just closing this bracket. So this is how I create the writer object. After that, now it's time to load the data, create the data and load the data into this student.csv file. So here I am using the write row method. After creating this writer object, first I want one line which has the fixed values, because I want to give the name to the columns of my data, columns of my attributes. So here I am calling the write row method to write down one row only in the CSV file. So how do I call that write row method? Using the stu writer object. So stu writer, just mention your writer object. Using dot operator, call the write row method, right? And in that write row method, just write one row, those fields you want to write down in your CSV file. So here I want to write down 3 attributes or 3 column names one by one, and that will be in the list format. So how to write in the list format? That means in the square bracket, and first will be suppose roll number. This will be written down as it is, right? Roll number, comma, then suppose standard, and the third element will be division, suppose. Okay, so this will be my list. So this is my first row, will be written down as it is in the CSV file. That will be my first row. So I want to display only one row, so that's why I did not include this into the for loop. I have written I have called the write row method using the STU writer only. After that, I need to take 5 records of 5 students one by one. For that also I am calling the write row method for that. So that's why I need to use the for loop. So for I in range, I want to include the 5 rows, 5 records. So my range will be 5, right? In that I am calling the write row method only, but first I need to take this attribute from user. I am not giving data in the Python program. I am taking the data as an input from the user. So here I am declaring the variable for roll number, standard and division, and then I am taking the data one by one from the user, and then I am just adding the data into your CSV file using write row. So my first variable will be suppose roll. Roll is equal to, roll is the integer, roll number will be the integer format. So integer input, and then just ask the user to enter roll number. User will enter roll number, that roll number will be placed into roll. Then standard. Standard will be also in the integer format. So integer input, enter standard. Okay, and then third will be division. Now division will be in your character format. So you need to take it as a string. So you don't need to mention the integer, just input. Input, enter, division. Okay, so your 3 attributes are ready. These 3 attributes are ready. Now you are creating one record using 3 attributes. That record will be your list. So record, this is your list. You are making a list of this 3, and here just include the all this means in roll you have taken the roll number, in standard you have taken the standard, in division you have taken the division. So just mention here roll, standard, values which are entered by user. So this record is ready. Now what you will do, this record is the data object which is ready now. You are writing this record to your CSV file using write row method, just like that. So how do you write this? Your STU writer, your writer object. So STU writer dot write row, because you are writing row by row, one by one. Write row, and then just mention the record, this record. Okay, so STU writer dot write row, and then just mention this record. In this record your current roll number, standard, division is included, and this record will be written using write row method called by the stu writer object. So this will be done for 5 times. You know the working of for loop. So for first time you are taking roll number standard deviation from user, you are placing that 3 attributes into record, and then you are just calling the write row method and write down this record to the stu writer, your CSV file. This will be done for 5 times for 5 different records, and then this will be written down in your file object. That means your file. After this, you will take the exit from the for loop and then just close the file because your operation is done. And then how to close the file? File object 1.close. So your CSV file is ready now. What you do? What did you perform in this? First import CSV, then create the file object, open the CSV file into write or append mode, then create the writer object using the writer method. Keep the file object as a reference. Here I am writing the first row which is fixed, so I am just calling the write row method and mentioning this attribute, the column names. So stu writer, your writer object dot operator and write row method, then this, and then I want to take the 5 records of 5 students. So I am using the for loop. So for I in range 5 times I am taking the 3 variables to place the values. So roll standard division, I am taking the values from user. Then I am creating the list here which will save this roll number standard division in the list format. And then this, suppose the roll number I have entered 1, standard 5, division A. So that 15A will be stored in record list, and then I am calling the write row method and I am writing this record into the writer object. This writer object is connected to your file object, so it will be automatically written to your CSV file. So this is the functioning of a writer object and write row method. Now we'll just take the short example that how we can use the write rows method. So for write rows, we are taking the rows in the Python program only, all the values. Here we are taking the values from user using the input function. But in write rows, we already have the data with us. So we are just mentioning the data one by one, and then we are placing the data into the CSV file. So what we will do that we will create one data object just like we have done here as a record. This will be the same because you need the writer object for that. Here I am creating one data object which is record, which is your list. You are creating nested list here, means one big list containing several nested list, sub list. So here this first bracket is your main list, one complete list, and the second one will be your first record. So my first record will be, suppose I want to display it as it is, so roll number, then division standard, this will be displayed as it is, and then division. So this is my first record. I am just completing this will be my opening bracket, this will be my closing bracket, and then I am creating the sublist. This is my first record. Second is just enter the records, roll number 1, standard 5, division A. This is my second list. Then this is the second row, but my first data, roll number 2, standard is 7, division C. Then roll number 4, standard 6, division B. Just like that, you can add the multiple entries here, multiple records. Next, roll number 1, standard was 4, division C. That's it. So I want to include these 5 records, 5 lines, and I am just closing this main list here. This will be my opening bracket, this is my closing bracket, and this is my complete list is ready. So after that, this record means these are multiple rows, right? So that's why you can use the write rows method for that. So once my record is ready, then I want to place. I am not calling one record one by one in for loop. If I am having one record as it is, then I am just calling the write rows methods. Now how to call the write rows methods? Just your stu writer is your writer object dot operator, and then write rows, and then just mention the record. That's it. So in this record, all your records are already there. Those will be written all at once using write rows by your writer object. So this is done. This is how you can use the write rows if you have all the data with you. So you can write down all the data in one time, and then you can just close the file. So in your CSV file, your data will be written, and for explanation only I have written down like this. In Python program you cannot write down like this. This will be in your one line only, because I don't have sufficient space. That's why I have written down like this. But in Python, if you are writing like this, you will get an error. So make sure that you are writing down this in one line, otherwise you will get the error. So this is the write rows method in the CSV file to write down the values in CSV file. So in today's lecture we have seen the CSV file format, the syntax of CSV file, 2 objects you need to create: reader object for reading from the file, writer object to write down to the file, and then syntax of those, examples of those. And if you have any doubt or any query regarding this, please ask in the comment box. I will surely try to resolve that query. And this is all. So here our basic file handling concepts are done, your text file, binary file and CSV file. For more contents and for short notes, follow my Instagram handle, where I am mentioning the short notes and some tricky notes in the simple format. And in next lecture we will learn just few concepts of the file handling only. Those will become handy in whenever you are performing some different kind of operations. So for now, this is all. Thank you.